Witwatersrand University. He has over the years acquired competencies in the civil aviation management from Singapore Aviation Academy and skills in airport customer service quality management from Incheon International Airport, among others. Prior to joining the aviation industry, he worked with MCL Macan, a PR and advertising agency, and Uganda Telecom. He has also served as a member of the Board of Africa Chess Confederation and president of the Africa Zone 4.2. Luja has been at the helm of handling various stakeholder engagements, crisis management, and handling of local and international events in Uganda's aviation industry. In 2019, he was recognized by the International Civil Aviation Organization through the East African and South Africa office with an Aviation Pioneer Award in recognition of the promotion of the global aviation's body's Platinum Jubilee.
And of course, Vianney is right here with us, and we would like to just say hello to him. And of course, we'll be expecting a lot of discussion from that time when Uganda Civil Aviation was on the spot, but sometimes not for their own making, but because they house quite a number. A very good evening to you, Vianney. Say hello to our viewers.
Thank you very much, Mildred. A very good evening, viewers. It's a pleasure and honor for me to be here this evening.
A pleasure to have you. Let's take a look at who our next panelist is.
Mr. Richard Rujungu Ruhesi, Director, Aerial Navigation Services, Uganda Civil Aviation Authority. He is in charge of the directorate responsible for providing the services that ensure safe and efficient operations of aircraft in the Uganda airspace. He is a certified aviation engineer with vast experience in design, development and maintenance of aeronautical systems and management of aviation safety operations. He has served in various leadership positions in aerial navigation, supervising a team of highly skilled aviation professionals consisting of air traffic controllers, aeronautical information management officers, and aviation safety engineers. He holds a Master's of Science in Information Systems Engineering and a Bachelor of Engineering in Electrical and Electronic Engineering, with a rich working background in software development, aeronautical systems, airborne defensive aids, civil and military radar, embedded electronics, data communication, and satellite-based applications. As a specialist in communication navigation and surveillance, he is involved at national level in multiple sectoral engineering projects such as airports, surveillance systems, satellite-based technologies, and the outer space policy. At the regional and international level, he is a member of several high technical working committees of ESC, COMESA, and Council. He is a member of the Aeronautical Frequency Spectrum Panel of ICAO and a leader in the subgroup of CNS, ATM Africa Indian Ocean Planning and Implementation Regional Group, APIRG.
Now, as technical as that profile there was, we expect all the technical jargon and terms to be coming from Richard here, but we just want to say a very good evening to you, Mr. Ruhesi. Say hello to our viewers.
Thank you, viewers.
Yes.
Thank you, Mildred.
I hope we will simplify the jargon and technical language.
We'll try as much as possible without distorting the...
I love that, without distorting it. Let's take a look at who our next panelist is.
Mr. Fred Keba Mwesije is the Director General of Uganda Civil Aviation Authority. He has an extensive experience in the aviation industry as the authority's Deputy Director General. Prior to that, he served as the authority's Director, Human Resource and Administration, a position he assumed in February 2009. Before joining the authority, he worked with the National Environment Management Authority, NEMA, and also served as the Legal and Human Resource Manager with National Water and Sewage Corporation. He is an experienced aviation management professional with competencies in senior civil aviation management, managing aviation policy and regulation, transport economics, and managing airport operations and air navigation services, all attained from the Singapore Aviation Academy. His experience in the corporate management and quality assurance spans over 25 years of service. Mr. Bamwesigye is an advocate of High Court of Uganda with a Masters of Arts in Development Studies, specializing in human resources management from the Hague School of Development Studies in Netherlands. He holds a diploma in business management from the University of Manchester, a postgraduate diploma in legal practice from the Law Development Center, and a Bachelor's of Law degree from Makerere University.
Some of us could be getting a little bit confused. An advocate of the High Court, a lawyer at that, now heading the Uganda Civil Aviation Authority. That's how dynamic our next panelist is. And Mr. Bamwesigye, just say hello to our viewers.
Yeah, good evening, Mildred, and good evening, viewers. Once again, I'm happy to be here to continue to explain the state of the aviation industry in Uganda, and I'm looking forward to have a good interaction with the viewers and also all other Ugandans. Thank you.
All right, yes, that's very true, and we're coming to you live on NBS television, but also coming to you live on UBC TV, Inspiring Uganda. I am not alone. The other person is not a panelist. He is my co-host, and that is none other than Timothy Nyangwe. So, Tim, good evening to you.
Good evening, and I'm excited. I hope our seatbelts are fastened, and we're going to take off to be able to see how this aviation is done in this country. Yeah. Knowing very well that in 1991, that's when Uganda Civil Aviation kicked off to be able to do the things it did, and also looking at some of the amendments that happened within this country. But I'll start with the Director General. As Civil Aviation Authority, where are we coming from, and where are we going? But let me also put it into context that you help us understand. We are post-COVID. How are we as Civil Aviation Authority?
Thank you very much, Mr. Nyangweso. Thank you very much, Mildred, for this chance. Once again, it is always a pleasure to share with countrymen and women on how the state of the aviation industry is. Of course, as you all know, aviation industry has been in existence. Uganda became a contracting state of ICAO in 1967. Since that time, we became part and parcel of the global aviation fraternity. And in 1991, as you rightly said, we had the first law, the first primary registration establishing Civil Aviation Authority in Uganda. And later, this was amended, but all those are amended to continue to harmonize our system with the global system of aviation. But as you know, we've been operating smoothly until COVID came in. That is in 2019, yes. 2020. And of course, there was a lot of disruption in the aviation industry. Probably one of the sectors that were hard hit by the pandemic. And we continued to operate, although it was disruptive. The airport and other aviation facilities were open because we had to handle emergencies and repatriations and many overflights. So we kept open, but passenger services were not really, normal commercial passengers were not coming to the airport, were not using them. Therefore, we did not have revenues at that time, except for the cargo side. But still, we sustained the industry, the team and the others who were there, and we kept operating until these restrictions for COVID were eased, and we started operating slowly. We started by operating at around 10%, 28%. We came to 50%. Now we are in the region of 80% operational compared to pre-COVID levels of operation. We are now moving at that level.
In simpler terms, if looking at pre-COVID in terms of probably traffic not operation capacity, in terms of traffic and how many people were exiting and coming through the airspace, Uganda's airspace, and currently where we are, which numbers are we talking about? And are we about to hit the pre-COVID? Have we surpassed them, or we're still hoping to?
The situation has, yes, we have improved greatly, because the last figures, consistent figures we had was in the month of April. I think we had slightly over 4,000 passengers per day. Previously, before COVID, we were actually having 5,000 passengers per day. So we are about really to get to those numbers of pre-COVID. Surprisingly, we were looking at the figures of May, and we found actually the figures of May are now 5,000 again. Okay. But of course, those are some of the figures we get when we have big days or big activities like this movement to Martyrs Day, movement Saudi Arabia for the Muslim pilgrims. Those could not be relied on as consistent, but we get them once in a while. Like Christmas time, you get more figures of passengers, but you can't say that now you are at those levels of passengers, except, of course, in the months, for instance, of January, after December, you see figures getting down again. So consistency is determined over several months. So right now, we are recovering. We are somewhere around 80% recovery.
Thank you very much, Director General. Let me come to Director Richard. You know, a lot is said about navigation, about airspace, and the terminologies seem very difficult to understand. I'm hoping that an ordinary Ugandan outside there, you can be able to put some meaning for us to be able to understand it, and what happens in navigation, what happens in airspace, and break down those terminologies for us to be able to understand.
Thank you very much. I don't think I can exhaust the terminologies of aviation in this.
There are quite many.
Yeah, very many. But I think our viewers maybe need to know what air navigation as such, as a service is. Most of our viewers are most likely familiar with airports. Airports is the most common service under our mandate as CAA. We provide and we develop airports, but then we also offer a service called air navigation services. And this service is the service that you'd broadly call the airspace management. This is a service that allows orderly operations within the airspace, safe and efficient, in such a way that aircraft move from place to place, from airport to the other. For instance, an aircraft needs to take off from an airport, go out to taxi out to the runway, take off along the runway, fly a route through several phases of flight, and in the same way, when landing, come through a similar process. So these are the areas we look at. Maybe just for the purpose of understanding, I could break down those services a little bit more. Among those services that we offer, I could say, I'll mention about, I'll break them down into about 4, is we've got the core service, which is the airspace management, which is the air traffic management, normally called ATM. This is the service, these are the personnel and systems that enable aircraft fly. They give the instructions, they've got the procedures, they interact with the pilots, essentially. And they give all these instructions, they go through a regime, they've got systems that they manage and are able to separate aircraft, keep aircraft from coming close to each other, basically smoothly flying in the airspace. Then we've got a service that we call the CNS. You'll hear time and again people talk about CNS. CNS is communication, navigation, and surveillance. And these are broken down, if I break them any further, is communication is the means by which we talk, the aviation public, the aviation users talk to each other. A lot of it is by voice, by data. That's communication. And there's all sorts of means of providing that. Then there's the service called navigation. Navigation, in aviation terms, is the ability to know where you are for an aircraft flying out there would need to know where they are in the airspace of the world. So navigation is that method by which, and this is also supported by instruments and other. There's also surveillance. The common thing about surveillance is, for instance, radar is where the ability for you, who is on the ground, to know where the aircraft is in the air. That is what we call surveillance. And this is provided by common service like radar. But then in order to put all these together, we've also got a service called Aeronautical Information Management. This is a service that provides information to the entire industry. This information is collected from all sources. It's distributed in a very systematic way, in a standardized way worldwide, and it is provided by service. An example of this service would be a briefing office. For instance, before an aircraft takes off, there's certain information they must get. And okay, I won't go through all those, but among the key information elements that they get, other than the routes and the destinations and whatever, is the weather. So we also coordinate a service called aeronautical meteorology. This is commonly known as MET. We'll also hear them refer to it as MET. But this is the information required about weather. Weather is a very important phenomenon in flight. It supports landing, takeoff, and is quite critical. They also provide...
Sorry, let me stay with you. And you have given us these 4 services.
Yes.
But let me ask a basic question. MH370, the Malaysian flight that disappeared, also, are there black spots that you can not be able to navigate this plane and know that, within this space, the plane will disappear? And what are you doing about such technology? You can give us a background of how the MH370 disappeared, but also tell us if there are black spots where planes, you have no navigation of them.
Yeah, okay. The MH370 is an example of a disappear. I'll look at it from the point of control, air traffic control. Okay. The air traffic controllers were seeing it on the radar or on the air traffic management system, and it disappeared. Normally, when an aircraft ceases to be seen but says no signal or has a distress signal, it changes status. So it changes from an ordinary flight to a distress flight, and it goes into what is called search and rescue mode. So it's a common phenomenon, but it's not. It's happened. It happens a lot. Many times, but not all of them turn into the catastrophe that we had with the MH370. But that leads me to another service that we offer, which is the coordination of search and rescue. Because the air traffic controllers are normally the last people, or the last people to have communication with the aircraft, they are charged. We are charged with that task of coordinating the search and rescue. Because everybody, it will be a point of contact to know where the aircraft was last seen. So we would have the information. Our air traffic controllers or our system, because it is normally recorded, would have that. The other service maybe I didn't mention is that we also coordinate with the military. The nature of the airspace in Uganda and many states is a joint owned airspace. So the airspace...
For security reasons as well.
The airspace is owned normally by the state and operated by the civil aviation or the air navigation service provider like ourselves. So we are charged also with that civil military coordination to ensure smooth operation amongst us.
Okay.
And services. And on the whole, okay, the definition of the airspace per se is it's got boundaries. It's got the boundaries, and in our case, it is the boundary of the territorial boundary. Ours is shaped in the form of our territorial boundary as Uganda, those who are familiar with it. And then in the going upwards, it is up to 100 kilometers. And that is what is called airspace. That's what we manage.
That's interesting. Vianney, I want to come to you. Earlier on, the DG talked about traffic in terms of passengers. And it's good news that we're literally almost coming back to the pre-COVID numbers. But there is cargo traffic, which is also a very important aspect, because we are not only using the airspace to transfer passengers, move from one place to another, but it's also another means of transport in terms of cargo. We're talking about export promotion here. The perishables and all that perishables depend on is the quickest and safest means of transport, which is air transport itself. How are we faring with cargo traffic, but also transportation, the ease? Because we've seen so many exporters talking about delays in the flights and most of their perishables going bad.
Thank you very much, Mildred. In terms of cargo traffic, you can say if we compare to 1991, when Uganda Civil Aviation Authority had just been established, Entebbe International Airport handled 6,600 metric tons of cargo. When you compare that to 2022, we handled 61,000 metric tons of cargo. The numbers were a little higher prior to COVID, 2019, it was 64,000 metric tons of cargo. It slightly reduced in 2020 to 59,000 metric tons, but cargo did not reduce as much as passenger traffic, partly because of what he alluded to, the fact that cargo operations were sustained even during the COVID times. In fact, during that time, airlines tried a lot of innovation. Because cargo operations were permitted, there were air operators that reconfigured passenger aircraft to be used to carry cargo. And that was one of the survival modes adopted during that time of 2020. But when you look at the bulk of Uganda's cargo, it's mainly exports. Exports are more than imports. And that is good news for Ugandans because it is an opportunity for especially farmers. Because when you look at most of the exports that we handle through Entebbe International Airport, it comprises of fresh produce, including fish, flowers, vegetables, and that kind of thing. So that is an opportunity for Ugandan farmers in that area. But moving back a little bit on the passenger traffic that he actually tackled, just the figures of May that he mentioned that were as high as the ones of pre-COVID, 5,000 passengers per day. The interesting part about May is that we registered 79,000 arrivals and 77,000 departures. So May is the 1 month where we have registered more arrivals than departing passengers. Most of these months prior to May, we have been registering more departing passengers. So the fact that we have got more arrivals in May is an interesting phenomena, but is partly attributed to the returning pilgrims from Umrah that he actually mentioned during that particular time.
Okay, and I was also a little bit interesting, away from just May, looking at the statistics of the numbers that we have, departures and arrivals as well. What do these comprise of? Are these just tourists? Is it business related? And also I was earlier on talking to Mr. Ruhesi and asking, how about our departures? Do we have more of those going to the UAE in search for jobs? What is the, when you try to break down our departures and arrivals, what does it look like?
The bulk of passengers is largely tourists. But the categorization of tourism is what also needs to be looked at in another way. While the bulk is generally known as tourists, even people who come for business or conferences eventually end up being tourists because someone comes to attend a conference and in the evening they visit the zoo or a tourist attraction. So, but we generally say that the bulk is tourists, but we have business people, we have people coming for conferences, and of late Uganda is hosting a lot of conferences, and that is also helping our traffic. When it comes to departures, the most popular destinations for Ugandans include UAE, Nairobi, China also used to rank quite high. Interestingly, South Africa is also among those top 5 destinations, as well as UK. So those, in terms of people departing Uganda, are major destinations that we have our people going to.
Okay, and maybe before Timothy comes in, you talk about departures, and at departure is an aspect of convenience. I want to be able to come through, I want to check in, I want to have a smooth sail and be able to go. And DJ, I want to come to you because a few months ago, it wasn't all rosy because what was in the media space, social media, was extortion tendencies, people missing flights and delays. That went down. Many people get to say Uganda is not a blockbuster movie. We keep having a series. So something different happens at a different time and the other is shadowed away. How did we conclude on that? And is it seamless now to say?
I want to say that, and I have said it before, this I have said it before. It has been widely reported that extortions are in the airports and they are quite a lot of inconveniences because of so many handlers and all that. Yes, partly true. And as you earlier on said, we have quite a lot of stakeholders within our aviation facilities. And it is not just civil aviation that handles passengers in the airport. You know very well, you have immigration, you have security, you have cargo handlers, you have passenger handling agencies, you have airlines, and a combination of all this. Of course, when COVID came, we also had other desks that were not typical aviation, like health desks. You also, because of these workers that are going to Middle East, you also have a labor desk, and so on and so forth. Because of those, there were a multiplicity of desks and operators that for some time we coordinated but could not largely left them to do their mandate. But now it turned out that some of them increasingly became an inconvenience. And we totally came out, told the Ugandans that we cannot continue like this, apologized where we could, and did put measures mainly to do away with those desks that are not typical of an airport operation, like health desk, like labor desk. The other one was the vaccination desk, and so on and so forth, and we removed them. We streamlined security totally, streamlined immigration, put restrictions on movements within the airport, and left each stakeholder to do their part. And some of the requirements, like COVID certificates, could not be allowed unless they are required by the country of destination. Those that could be checked by airlines, we restricted them to airlines. Things like visas, we left them with immigration. So now we streamlined the whole place. We stopped people to walk around with phones if they were not supervisors, and we enforced them. Right now,
I want to take a selfie. It's time to travel, and I'm very excited.
Yes, selfie, because you're a passenger, you can take a selfie. We don't stop that, except if you go in restricted areas. And restricted areas are not really for only Entebbe International Airport. Every place, even by the way, not in the airport, even in this building, I am sure, there are places where I'm not allowed to go and start taking pictures. So that is a feature of every establishment that we do. But for passengers, there are those passenger areas that they are required. They do that almost every other day. Take pictures, feel happy, do all sorts of things, and go. But of course, we can't allow you to take pictures in security restricted areas. But for the workers there who are not supervisors, because of those malpractices, we restricted their phones to only supervisors. And we shall observe that until we continue to see progress. Until then, maybe we could think about relieving those restrictions, trying to go through on them. But for now, that's what has happened, and it is a very, very seamless experience as of now. The other matter that is still not, of course, you know very well, in the whole airport we are constructing, we are modifying, we are doing all sorts of things. And we, once again, want to thank airport users for the patience they have had with us, because we want to modernize these facilities and be modernized the level at how an airport should be. You can see we are working on the departures. We have got a twin road system that will take us up to the departure, and we have even a canopy now. We are constructing a canopy where people will come and be able to enter into an airport without being, if it is raining, they will have to move towards the airport without any problem of rain. And when they are coming back, same thing downstairs. But before we complete that, there is still an inconvenience of reaching the airport departure area is still a little bit of a problem. But we are really moving very fast, and soon we shall complete and allow our passengers to reach
How soon is
the airport. We thought actually by now we should have completed, and it is being done by our partners, the UPDF Engineers Brigade. But I think in the importation of finishing tiles and other things, we are not, they delayed a little bit. So we shall wait for another 2 months. Maybe we should be able to complete by end of August. And this was not our making. I keep telling. Inside there, if you have been there, you can see we expanded check-in areas totally, and now there are many. We expanded immigration area. We went into inside in the waiting lounges and made them open, an open lounge system, and expanded the duty-free area. Really, when you enter, you find that we have done quite a lot of things. And we are continuing to do many things. Probably I will have a chance to explain more as time goes on.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll come back to that, Director General. But Director Richard, let me come to you. One of the things that every ordinary Ugandan that goes through Entebbe is the hectic movement from departure to actually leaving. September 2022, you had commissioned automation in there. $9.5 million by the Korean International Cooperation Agency. What does this mean, and why are we not feeling this happening within the airport?
Thank you very much. I think the project that you're referring to is a project of modernization of Entebbe International Airport that was supported by our partners from the Republic of South Korea. This, as you say, indeed, it was a $9.5 million project. And it covered many improvements within the airport, and mainly operational improvements that point towards safety and efficiency. I can take you maybe through the components of that project. One of them was a compliance matter where we, as part of our mandate, we need to distribute information. This information, aeronautical information, needs to be distributed all over the country, and then distributed to the rest of the world in an international format. So we had a system, it's called automatic message handling system. This was installed. It's a system that is, we were the first in the region to have it implemented, and it has improved our coordination, airport coordination tremendously, within the country and outside. As part of that project, we also had a terminal operating control center, we call it a TOCC. This TOCC is a one-stop center. If you've been to the airport, maybe you'd have opportunity to come and have a look. Is that many of our operations, it may not be very visible, but in-house, it actually made a difference. Is that many of our operations were scattered, were all distributed all over within several offices. All of them have been centered into something called a TOCC, a Terminal Operation Control Center. And it is a common practice now at many airports. So we've managed to get that working. All the operations are controlled in one room. You are able to monitor what's going on within the airport, not only by camera, but data, the information exchange and everything can be done. This has behind it, it's driven by a database, an airport database system. In the same project, we had also some other infrastructural improvements, which are obvious. I think if you've been to the airport, you'll see some very large screens that will provide information. They're very modern screens that provide passenger information. Some of them are not yet commissioned, they're under in a new building, but these are there. We also had, within that, a CCTV system. The way Entebbe Airport is that from the control tower, you're not able to see the entire aerodrome. You're not able to see the entire airport. There are areas, the critical nature of a critical part to the operation that you can't see. So we got a CCTV system that enables us to see nearly the whole area. Not only airplanes, even the operations on the ground. It's for airplanes, it's the taxiway, mainly the taxiways, one of the runways, the taxiways and the maneuvering areas. are able to be seen by that.
Let's widen the scope. One, why isn't this experience felt by the stakeholders? Because you're talking about operations and you're talking about systems and infrastructure put in place. But secondly, does this system also help coordinate the other airdromes that are across the country, the 13 that we're talking about?
The aerodromes, all of those aerodromes are now connected to this system. The way it's done is we do it systematically. So for those that are manned, for this service to work, you have to have people at this airport. So for those several airports that are manned, this system is distributed over there. When you say that maybe the stakeholders don't feel it, they do. There's a smooth operation that is felt. A lot of data, the collection of data is much, much easier than it was 4 years ago when we started this project. A lot of what was paper data, a lot of it has been digitized, and you're able in one place to get all the information that you need. So the airport operators, this was to assist the airport stakeholders. Of course, if the airport stakeholders are feeling it, then the passengers get it indirectly. But this information is essentially assisting the operation of the airport.
When I'm in Soroti, I can be able to get the information that is in Entebbe.
When you're
if I have flown from Entebbe to Soroti or Entebbe to Mbara, whichever of these airdromes I have gone to, can I be able to get the same information that is relayed in Entebbe in Soroti?
Yes, the system is linked, but the way the air operations work is that you only take the information that you need. You will be given information that as soon as you, for instance, when you take off from Entebbe going to Soroti, as soon as you take off, that same system will relay everything about your flight to Soroti immediately, and they'll be expecting you. The same would happen if in Arua, you file a flight plan from Arua, you load all your information in there. That information will automatically, very quickly, instead of being relayed by phone or by radio, it will go by digital means to Entebbe, and it will be part of the database. So the operations would benefit from that, is that it reduces the workload of the controllers, it reduces the workloads of the officials.
All right, yes, we wanted to respond.
One component of that project, which dealt with the capacity building, training of the staff manning those systems, and very, very, very well, we have actually some of the global experts in the country because of that system. And we are not lacking. We don't have expatriates there. All people manning it, our own staff, and they are Ugandans.
Interesting.
Yes.
Let me come to you. One of the things that really was interesting with the debacle that happened at the airport with all this social media there, one, extortion, then you said people should put on uniforms, they should keep their phones away, and then you had a whole press conference. But what is your public relations strategy, especially to get ahead of such stories and not detriment the reputation of the civil aviation?
Thank you very much. We enforce what we call proactive communication, and that is what we prefer, by sharing information with the public in advance. But like the saying goes, good news sometimes does not spread as much as the bad news. So while we keep sharing the good news as and when it happens, as well as the developments that are being shared, for instance, here, when it comes to massive saturation of information, when bad news happens, it tends to spread wider than the good news. And that is why sometimes you have seen the bad news spreading a little more. But nevertheless, while we do the proactive engagement, when the bad news does spread, we also engage the public fully by providing the right information, like we did in this particular case, whereby we were able to share the measures that we had put in place as an airport, and the public was able to appreciate and understand the situation that we were going through.
And let me stay with you before I hand you over to Mildred.
Yes.
If you're building a discipline, you don't wait to grow fat to go to the gym. I feel like civil aviation waits to grow fat, then goes to the gym to try this discipline. At what point do you start to give this information to the public, that this is what we do? Because when I look at some of your core values, customer care, accountability, teamwork, efficiency, innovation, integrity, it sounds like an oxymoron one direction and your communication is going in another direction. Why?
Not at all. We actually enforce those values that you are seeing, and we, in our communication as well, we communicate them by bringing out the things that we do on a regular basis. If, for instance, you visit our social media handles, they are very active with a lot of the things that we do on a regular basis. And that is part of the enforcement of the things that we are doing and communicating in the public domain.
Okay. Now, I want to come to the DG, because for you to operate an authority as civil aviation, there is a force of the law. And there's been a recent amendment that was assented to by President Yoweri Museveni. In most cases, we normally see change of name, and that is what is highlighted. So we moved from civil aviation to Uganda Civil Aviation Authority. But what do the amendments therein mean for the aviation industry in terms of enhancement of safety? Because we've always been told since primary school the safest and quickest means of transport is air transport. And unfortunately, when there is a glitch, it is a disaster. So what do these amendments mean to your work and providing this sort of safety to the passengers?
Yes, I said it earlier that this law, what we call primary registration, the Uganda Civil Aviation Authority Act, came into existence in 1991. Over the years, of course, that mother law is part and parcel of the operationalization of what we call the Chicago Convention. Because aviation is global, as you know. Chicago Convention is a global legal instrument that was promulgated, and all states, all contracting states, as are implementing it with its annexes. It is operated by annexes, now 19 annexes. And they are all operated by different countries by domesticating what is provided in those legal instruments to their own situations in the country. So because of a long time, there were many promulgations coming out of ICAO, the global regulator, but also changing situations. So we were able to bring them together and amend our own Civil Aviation Authority primary registration, the Civil Aviation Authority Act, and update it to include those provisions. And what are they? Other than what you are saying, changing the name from Uganda, from Civil Aviation Authority to Uganda Civil Aviation Authority. Again, that one was, of course, consistent with the practice everywhere. You have Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, Tanzanian Civil Aviation Authority, Rwanda Civil Aviation Authority, even UK. All those, so we harmonized that. And therefore, what used to be managing director became director general, because that is the nomenclature for aviation. Okay. But beyond that, quite a lot of amendments were made to strengthen the mandate of safety and security in aviation. For instance, I would say that earlier on, we are not provided for, say, an accident investigation unit. Even when ad hoc means were there to put it in place, it was based in Uganda Civil Aviation Authority. Yet, that accident investigation unit is supposed to be independent, and among the investigation, the agencies to be investigated when an accident happens is Uganda Civil Aviation Authority, because it is in charge of oversight of the industry. Maybe the accident was caused by lapses in oversight, and now you can't have it and be the one in charge, so it has to be independent. That was enforced, and now it is in place, and it is in the Ministry of Works. There were also rule regulations to do with delegation of powers from the ministry to Uganda Civil Aviation Authority. ICAO, or the system of ICAO, believes that this safety provisions can be enforced very close to the area of operations. So it was seen that when the powers are within the ministry, they are too far from the industry. So they were given to the authority through Director General, and even Director General has to delegate them to specific inspectors
who are on ground.
Who are on the ground. So that actions, take safety actions, safety enforcement actions take place immediately, including surveillance, spot-on surveillance, or actions that will make you enter, say, an industry or an operator without first giving notices, because you can see that there is some safety infringement in that operator. Within that operator, it could be an aerodrome operator, it could be an airline, it could be a maintenance organization, it could even be a training school. And you see something, you must go there quickly and enforce it. Those powers were not there before. You could also revoke a license you have already given. If in your own estimation you think that ever since the license was given, there are now certain infringements on safety of say an operator who could be an owner of an aerodrome, could be an airline, could also be any other, and you see that, yes, I approved them to operate with this license, with these conditions, but I need now to strengthen the conditions for me to keep abreast with now the new safety challenges. All those provisions are there. There are many, Mildred, there are many. I don't think that this place can allow me to talk about them. And even now, we are not saying that we are done. Every day in aviation, every day comes with its own challenges regarding safety of aviation and even security. So anytime, once we see a safety critical lacuna that need to be legislated on, we actually come in and quickly include it.
And just actually, before we take a break, Timothy, I want to engage Director Rehesi on the same. On some of the recent developments in the air navigation space that you've taken to ensure security, because when we're talking about safety and security with air transport, it is as real as it can sound, because in case of anything, it is as fatal as not being able to get even one single survivor. What are some of these developments that you've adopted, and how are they going to help enhance safety and security in service provision?
Yeah, thank you very much. In terms of service provision, there's many. We've implemented so many. Maybe to put it in context, as the Director General was saying, is the civil aviation system is global. The plans are at a global level. So you plan. It is planned at a global level, implemented at a regional level. We then have to coordinate with our neighbors in the region. We then have the national implementation. So for all of these, the implementations that have been recommended at the global level, we have implemented. An example I would give is we've implemented one of the highest priorities of ICAO, which is called performance-based navigation. And this is the transition. It's a transition from the ground-based systems. These ones I've been talking about, the things that are based on the ground for navigation, where the aircraft and the specification of the flying system is now based on its specification, can now utilize the space better. So we get to a better efficiency of the airspace. An example is that we are able, for instance, to fly very smooth and efficient flights into the country. An example is that when you fly into Uganda, anybody flying in our airspace will tell you the main benefit is that you fly what are called direct routes. You can, as soon as you get to the border, you will then fly direct to Entebbe. It's like flying, going down a slope, very smooth flight. Those who have experienced it know it. Is that in the past you'd feel an aircraft going down. You'd go in steps. If you fly within our airspace, we've modernized our airspace such that you just come straight in. We've also implemented some parallel routing. All of these add the efficiency of flight and reduce fuel burn. These measures reduce fuel burn, they reduce noise. they're more efficient, they're quiet, they are cost-effective and efficient, and arrive on time. So all those benefits are really some of the benefits that are the air users are getting from some of these implementation. We've done so many other things, but that is one of the core, one of the key priorities of ICAO that we've implemented.
I love that in the conversation, Timothy. The discussion is there is a lot more. There is a lot that we're doing. I think we need to hear much more. Either we're not scooping it enough, or we're not just getting to know. But well, we need to be taking a very short commercial break. When you do return, myself and Timothy will be continuing with this particular conversation. But if you're joining us online, and in case you have any question, #SpotlightUG. We are live on NBS Television and live on UBC TV. Let's get back in a bit.
And Spotlight UG.
Abaana mu masomero tebiteekwa kukaluubiriza n'akatono eno kusimba nnyiriri mpanvu kano kalipagano ka bidduka simanya kuzunga na banka siripsi kati osobola okusasula school fees z'omwana wo ate n'okola n'ebirala ntoko ku ssimu ye ey'omu ngalo ekikola kyangu nnyo nyiga bunyizi *5*8 ogoberera ebikulagiriddwa oba okozese app ya MTN Momo ate kati okola ki olwaleero MTN Mobile Money Uganda Limited erungamizibwa banka enkulu ya Uganda.
This isn't just a girl. She is the future. This is a teacher, a doctor, a community leader, our future president.
She is our family's pride, and as her father, I will protect her from child marriage and talk to her about the dangers of teenage pregnancy. We each have a role to play in empowering our teenage girls to protect them from child marriage and pregnancy, because when we empower them, we empower our nation. Protect the girl, save the nation.
Take action. Report any case of defilement or child marriage to the police or call Sauti 116.
This is the University of Africa. On the streets, you get your real education. Here, everybody has a degree of something. But the most important qualification is imagination. Her reason to imagine is slay. His reason is to be the GOAT. Theirs is to take the beat and make it lit. They want to test edgy till it is fire. Their reason for imagination is to add riz in style. Her reason to imagine is finesse. And hers is to find what's new and bussin'. So no matter what your situation, just use your imagination.
The Ministry of Health will conduct yellow fever preventive mass vaccination campaign for all persons aged 9 months up to 60 years. These people should have never been vaccinated against yellow fever. The yellow fever campaign will be conducted in phases, with the first phase covering districts in the regions of Arua, Gulu, Lira, Kabare, Kabarore, and Hoima. The campaign will begin on the 9th of June and end on the 13th of June 2023 and will be conducted in all government health facilities and outreach posts. All parents and caregivers are requested to take their children aged 9 months to the nearest health facility and outreach posts to get vaccinated against yellow fever disease. All adults aged up to 60 years but have never been vaccinated should go to health facilities and vaccination outreach posts to get vaccinated against yellow fever. Ministry of Health calls upon everybody to report any person who presents with signs and symptoms such as yellowing of eyes, fever, headache, muscle pain, feeling of vomiting or nausea, vomiting, and general body weakness or fatigue to the nearest health facility or health worker immediately for medical attention. This could be yellow fever. Yellow fever vaccine is a single dose given once in a lifetime. The yellow fever vaccine is safe, effective, and free. This message is brought to you by the Ministry of Health with support from Gavi and partners.
Jerry con! Jerry con! Hey, Master Blaster! Touch him, man! Bang Jerry con with muscle! Those ones who say go for you only. Mundava. Best movies I teach you. When I'm going to Muscali, because of the cover is very far. Is you serious? It's serious you. What? Yeah? Just type it on it. Add kilometers to your legs. And you get your sugar. We buy meat from Umaru. And Umaru refuse to give you enough meat. Mama! Show him that they don't joke with you.
okukakaluka n'okulungi kwetaagako omuntu akuyambako n'olwekyo tujja kukuteerawo embeera esaanidde osobole okukola ekisinga awamu teri kitulema.
Magical Egypt Tour 2023 is here. A heavenly miracle waiting across the natural and divine attractions of Egypt, such as Cairo, Giza Pyramids, Saqqara, Memphis, and many more that will offer the gift of a lifetime. The chance to unlock all of the hidden powers of mind and soul, gain the enlightenment of the past and the future, and develop the power of healing. Departure will be Friday 16th up to 23rd June 2023. Basic package starting at $1,200, 8 days and 7 nights. Come to Gotove Tours and Travel.
Welcome back, and thank you so much for keeping it NBS Television and UBC TV Inspiring Uganda. For Spotlight editions, discussions such as this, we get to partner together to ensure that a greater number of Ugandans can be able to pay attention. This evening, our conversation is about the Uganda Civil Aviation Authority, what we are doing to become better, what we are doing to align with the international standards as we continue to deal with our own airspace right here in Uganda. I am not alone, as Mildred Tohaise. I am with Timothy Nyangwe. So back to you, sir.
And I'm very grateful that we be able to discuss these things, especially if you're getting to travel in and out of the country, the region or abroad. Your safety is paramount, and efficiency both at the airport and the aerodromes is very important for all of us there. But let's jump into this conversation, and I think I'd like to start with the Director Richard. Especially, we're here chatting about technology and looking at there's all this cybercrime, there's all this artificial intelligence, concerns about, you know, can the flight and the navigation go off? How safe are we, especially with technology as a country? How safe are we for me to be able to move in country and out of the country?
Can't I intercept and somehow disorganize the systems a little bit? As an IT expert.
Well, it is, all those have possibilities, but we try as much as possible to eliminate them if we can, or at least reduce them to absolute minimum. Because in our operations, the paramount concern is safety. All of these technologies you've been talking about are interesting technologies. From the business perspective, elsewhere, these look like enabling technologies. They're actually very interesting for business, for others. But in aviation, some of these we regard as disruptive technologies. They change the environment so quickly that they may cause a safety issue. So we are very, very strict and very cautious when adopting technologies. A lot of the technologies the transition from one technology to another in aviation, you'll notice, takes some time. It is very advanced, but it is very, very, very slow in adopting to new technology. And all that is because of the need to be cautious when taking on technologies. But many of the technologies we have, through a very elaborate process, through a rigorous testing and rigorous assessment, safety assessment, we've managed to take on some of these new technologies. Especially the transition that we've been talking about from conventional system to satellite-based systems. We've moved to mainly a paper-driven system in the past, and some analog systems to digital database systems. All of those have a very strong cybersecurity behind them.
And you talk about satellite. It also concerns because then we're exposed to the rest of the world. But how safe are we, on a scale of 1 to 10, how safe are we as a country, technology-wise, and also being tracked or being hacked and all these things? Because there's the dark web for people to be able to get open source technology and be able to hack things like that. Cybercrime, all these things, people stealing identity. Can't things like that be mimicked and someone be able to either divert a flight or be able to move it in a certain direction, give it different instructions? Are these possible, and how safe are we? scale of 1 to 10.
Thank you very much. Okay, from a scale of 1 to 10, in aviation we measure ourselves from. I mean, it's not 1 to 10 if I looked at it in terms of percentage. There's a requirement. We must meet the requirement. Normally, our requirements on safety and security
a minimum standard
is 99.7, 99.9. So we ensure that our systems are that safe.
Okay.
We do not compromise on that. Even for also systems, a system, say, we could accept that one system could be, say, disturbed, but we always have a backup.
Okay.
We'll have a backup. In the worst case, go back to the original method. So all the systems are covered in terms of safety and security.
Okay.
We have what is called redundancy. All systems are designed in such a way that they are redundant systems. They have safety redundancy, security redundancy, and continuity. All that is built in within the system, and that's why our professionals are really indoctrinated into this safety culture.
Okay.
Everything that we do is really geared towards safety. Safety of ourselves and safety of
I love that you're not just talking about training, but indoctrination into a safety culture.
It's a very serious,
Timothy was asking, that reminded me of the Kenyan gentleman who worked into the government system, created a new constituency, and he received a salary, but we don't expect that in civil aviation, do we?
No, it's not something that is there.
We would never expect something like that. Mr. Luja, let me come to you. The aviation industry is one which takes huge amounts of money to be able to deal and run and control and maintain, but also quite one that takes forever. For example, when we looking just at our background and we're looking at that beautiful Airbus, Ugandan Airbus right there, and many people are thinking, the question that always came was, when will we break even? Because it's a very expensive venture. But at that comes the discussion of how do we attract more in terms of cargo to be coming through, coming in and out, but also passengers. So are there any sort of measures that Uganda Civil Aviation Authority is looking at to attract more and more passengers into our airspace that will get to a time and think Entebbe International Airport is too small for the kind of traffic that we are having?
Yes, we have quite a number of those. Government, through UCAA, operates a liberalized air transport system. That means free entry and exit of air operators. But that enables us to attract as many operators as possible because there is no limitation on those that are joining our airspace. And in that regard, we have embarked on a campaign to ensure that we sign as many bilateral air service agreements as possible with other countries. As I speak now, Uganda has a total of 51 bilateral air service agreements with other countries. The most recent that we have signed include that with Finland, Colombia, and Nigeria. The Nigerian one included a review of the routing. So that enables us to ensure that we enhance connectivity. But when you look at the air operators that have, for instance, recently joined our airspace, as part of that effort, you recall that Airlink joined Ugandan airspace as to fill the gap when South African Airways exited. Not only Airlink, we have the Dubai route that is very busy. We attracted Air Arabia, which now flies to Sharjah in UAE. Previously, we had Emirates Fly Dubai, which were flying mainly from Entebbe to Dubai. So when Air Arabia came on board, they are now flying to another town in UAE, which is Sharjah. Besides Air Arabia, the coming on board of the national airline and commencing flights to still destinations in Dubai, South Africa, and many others in the region is all part of that effort of ensuring that we attract as many more passengers and cargo as possible. Because even the national airline now is handling a sizable amount of cargo because the Airbus has quite some tons that it can carry, and that is helping in that regard. Yes.
Okay, now, while you were even speaking about that, it took me back to a number of series of conversations of misinformation, of you having to deal with the public. And there was this whole, scathing headline that came through Uganda Entebbe International Airport mortgaged. And then came in the discussion of the HUEN, which sounds Chinese as UN or something like that. I want you to clear the air for that, for the people who are watching, because many said, oh yes, it's sold. Now you see when you type UN, what you see is the Entebbe International Airport. But also, what are some of those discussions and areas, scenarios that you've had to deal with regarding misinformation and a lot of misunderstood concepts that you've also picked a lesson from that the public also needs to understand?
Thank you very much, Mildred. The HUEN that you have picked on is an interesting one. But before I
sold our airport.
Before I delve into it, let me start with that background of that story.
Yes.
It was a front page headline in one of the dailies that Entebbe Airport given away for cash. Unfortunately, that story then, I think it was 2021, the headline was totally divorced from the content of the story.
The details therein.
Yes, indeed it was. And of course, we went ahead to clarify these issues at all levels. Our minister went on the floor of Parliament and made a statement. Even the Minister of Information clarified this, that much as we secured a loan from Exim Bank of China to the tune of $200 million for upgrade and expansion of Entebbe International Airport, this was purely a loan given on very good terms, that we are paying it back in 20 years at an interest rate of 2%. And before we start repaying that loan, we were given a grace period of 7 years.
Okay.
Within which we are not paying any principal, rather interest. So that grace period, by the time this news started spreading, we were actually within the grace period of 7 years. So it was as incorrect, as inaccurate as it was, but that was clarified at all levels. Even the Attorney General went on the floor of Parliament and clarified that government cannot give away an international asset, an asset like the international airport, the only one that we have. Even when we got that loan, the airport was not put up as collateral security for the loan. It is government of Uganda that guaranteed the loan. So all those clarifications were made and duly the situation was clarified. So while it had been clarified, one of our colleagues in the journalism profession went on Twitter and posted what you're talking about. He wrote that go to Google and type HUEN and see what comes up. Indeed, when you go to Google and type HUEN, yes, because that is the International Civil Aviation Organization code for Entebbe International Airport. So when you type HUEN, it brings Entebbe International Airport. Now the timing of that post was unfortunately extremely unfortunate, because we had just cleared the news of the allegation of the sale of the airport, which was incorrect. Now, someone mentions HUEN, which was sounding Chinese, like you have rightly stated. So to most Ugandans, were seeing it as Huan, and actually now connecting to the previous story and saying, indeed, this airport has been sold. But what was not communicated when people were told to type HUEN was the fact that that ICAO code is not only given to Uganda, to the airport at Entebbe, but it is given to all airports in the world. There is an ICAO code for each airport. And the HUEN, if you're to explain it properly, each letter has a meaning. The first letter, H, stands for the region. Now that code is for the countries in the African and Indian Ocean, where we also fall. So H stands for the region of East Africa. The next letter, which is U, represents the country, and in our case it is Uganda. Then EN represents the airport, which in our case is Entebbe. Yes. So if, for instance, you are referring to Gulu Airport, it would be H representing East African region, U representing Uganda, and GU representing Gulu. So it would be Hugu. If, for instance, you are referring to an airport in Kenya, say Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, the code would be H representing the East African region, K representing Kenya, and JK representing Jomo Kenyatta. So it would be HKJK. Eventually, we gave that explanation. You know, every challenge is also an opportunity for you to educate the masses.
And educate, yes, true.
So that was an unfortunate misinformation, but those are the things that we have to continue informing the public so that they know and appreciate this highly complex aviation industry.
And that's why your office has to have an open door policy so we can disturb you.
Maybe I need to add here.
Yes.
The genesis of this loan. This airport, as you know, Entebbe International Airport, was built in 1960s going into 70s. And because of that systems, of course there had been renovations and expansions like during Chogam. And time came when actually the systems we are almost at the risk of being overtaken by the times, you know. The systems are old, but we are operating in the modern world. So His Excellency the President actually requested the Chinese, and it is one of his visits there. And they agreed that they can come and help and give this money, although we are beginning to expand in our own way using some of our little resources, just like we are doing at the departure. And it could have taken such a long time. And he said, okay, you can come. And that's how that loan was negotiated, with those very favorable terms. And then we started working on it. There is absolutely no reference to taking over the airport, as he has said. It was just simply a negotiated deal that was between the two states, and for them they are using the Exim Bank to fund it, but of course overseen by the Chinese government, and that's it. There is no, it has been explained by our minister on several occasions, even on the floor of parliament, the country's attorney general, the Minister of Finance, everybody has explained it. So, and we shall continue to explain it.
And
our airport is safe.
Yes. Director General, I'll stay with you. The loan you're talking about is $200 million there from Exim Bank. But let's focus on some of these things. Kenya has moved a hub to Heathrow because of the flowers. They keep moving there. And my question to you, like Mildred had earlier on asked, what are we doing to expand the inflow of travelers here? But also, should our focus be travelers or cargo?
Now,
as a technical person.
Actually, thank you very much for asking that question. That's a very, very big question. We have been making a lot of efforts to attract these airlines here, as he has been explaining, by signing bilateral air service agreements. But the real attraction, actually, which the country, I take this opportunity to tell the country, is about increasing the level of economic activity. Aviation, like any other business, follows economics. It does not just come out of nowhere. I can tell you, people will not come here just to enjoy the services of an airport. It doesn't work like that, viewers. It doesn't at all. People come here to have economic activities they are doing. People come here to see attractive features. Therefore, as a country, we must now put a lot of effort in developing our tourism industry. He has just been explaining that the majority of the people who use Entebbe International Airport, up to now, they are still tourists. They are not just business, they are not conference. People attend conferences. They are still, the majority of them are tourists or other business people. So the quickest or the most sustainable thing to do is to get our economic activities attractive, our tourist centers attractive. Automatically you will see business in Entebbe, and airlines will come, even without them being persuaded to come here. Now for cargo, he has just indicated here that the cargo we have is mainly agricultural, perishable cargo, especially for exports. It is high time Ugandans start producing for the market. And what do I mean? Producing those types of produce that are in high demand in the world. And what again am I saying? If you are producing pineapples, you must know that the market needs these pineapples of this shape, of this color, of ripeness, and so on and so forth. The market is very, very sensitive about those. And now what does that mean? We must work with stakeholders, Ministry of Agriculture and other people, the tourist sector, tourism board and others, and we make this country, first of all, grow for export that is marketable, but also for attracting passengers, that's for cargo, for attracting passengers that come here to do economic activities or come to enjoy our tourist attractions. It doesn't start and end in the airport. It must be a collaborating effort by all. Of course, in so doing, we should also improve our hotels, our tour operators, the type of transport system that we have. This is really, really big area of focus that both the airport authorities and other downstream sectors must focus on to make sure that we attract people here. Airports and aviation are not always mainly for profit. They are not motivated by profits as a first thing. Actually, we are at home and we are done when our safety requirements are complied with, security, because what we get in that airport and aviation facilities, we again invest it. We don't make profits. Invest it for purposes of improving the facilities, especially keeping abreast with the safety requirements of the industry globally. That's what we always do. We don't so much care about profits, only to the extent to which we earn money to sustain our operations. That's probably our profits. And I want to tell you that, of course, the time here does not allow us to discuss this matter. It is not enough to just simply say that we have airlines, we have aviation facilities. We must all the time know that these are facilitators for something else. Dubai, you hear about this infrastructure of Emirates is not making profits, I can tell you. The aim, their model is to bring the world into Dubai.
And profits, that they are achieving.
Yes, profits are made in other sectors. It has that multiplier effect. And that's what they have. You do not see them emphasizing that they will get a shilling for a shilling in aircraft X. No? As long as you have brought people into Dubai, they have flooded the Dubai trade-free zone and bought many things. That is how they benefit.
Actually, Director,
and that is the model.
You actually mentioned that for you, the safety, the security is paramount above any other thing as you do. And I'm privy to information that Uganda is set to undergo some audits by ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization. When are they scheduled? How ready? Lest we will have some misinformation coming through at some point in time. Are we ready for these?
No, actually, talking of safety and security, as a contracting state, we are monitored and audited by the Global Aviation Agency called ICAO, just to make sure that we are keeping within compliance levels of the industry. And because of that, we have an audit for safety in September this year, just a few months away. And we are preparing for that, to be able to. And what are they testing? They are testing our capacity to oversee the industry, to ensure compliance. The industry is complying with aviation standards and recommended practice as promulgated all the time by ICAO. And we are getting ready for that. And this is not the first time. For security, we shall be audited in 2024. And there are previous scores that we have got, which we don't want really to relax about and continue to get.
You can blow the trumpet quite a bit.
Okay, for instance, we got 81.1%.
That would be a D2, I think.
In 2017,
in school terms, yes.
For security.
Yeah.
We have no intention whatsoever of relaxing on that. And that was, of course, far above the average of that time of 71%. We think we should now be in the region of 90% when the audit comes. And many, many other areas and parameters. Of course, the industry has expanded, and we must now be extremely work hard. Like there was no Uganda airline when the audit came, the other one, safety audit. Now the whole process of Uganda Airline, its existence, its approval, its operations, its compliance levels are now part and parcel of that audit. That's why at times we are criticized for being stringent on the industry, because we are mindful that if we relax on certain things, we shall pay heavily as a regulator.
Okay.
Yes,
Director General, let me come to you.
Yes.
You, Director Richard, you have exhaustively told us about safety and security. Now let's get to the economics. You have done so well, you're at 81%. I could even give you the 90 you're looking for now. But how do we deal with the economics? One, how are you doing the interlinkages between you and other agencies? The reason of that whistleblowing, social media, corruption, extortion, how are you doing the linkage in there? Because it is frustrating an ordinary Ugandan to have the experience there. That's one. Two, what is our comparative advantage? And what is the next airport after Entebbe? Because at some point, Entebbe has to get exhausted.
So by the way, that extortion, to your knowledge, let me first explain this once again. There was that spark, but we were doing quite a lot in containing those levels of malpractices. As you saw, when we were able to show the world that what we were doing, you saw we are actually dealing with those people who from different agencies, whom we are seeing, whom we are not, who were really promoting extortions. You know that. And we are actually all the time putting restrictions on some practices. We are dealing with other agencies on how to control their own stuff. But because of that spark, we were also put in a situation where we were drastic. But otherwise, on a normal, and we know why it came about. It's not, by the way, don't think that spark was just there. There are other fights somewhere which we know about.
And that's the linkage, Director General, we're looking for.
Now, the linkage between stakeholder sectors, like tourism sector, for instance, we have quite a lot of dealings with tourism. Could be better, but could even be improved. But we are trying. For instance, we have requested and we have been given to be on the board of Youth of Uganda Tourism Board, because we have inputs into the decisions that take place there. We have been holding meetings with, say, flower exporters, horticulture exporters, and trying to show them that we have facilities here that they must use, say the cargo, our cargo facility. Because if we don't have those, we will not be able to do that. We've been able to do a lot of collaboration with hospitality centers, with tour operators who operate taxi drivers in the airport, and to be able to smoothen how we receive people here in the country. And now we are going to embark on improving upcountry airports. I think you heard that. We have the backing of the president on that, and he has already given some directives, so that we make the experience of our visitors all through, from Entebbe International Airport to even other areas, especially those in the centers of attraction in the country, in the tourism areas, zones. You were talking again about, are we about to get another airport? Although we are working on Entebbe and expanding it and making facilities better, of course, you know, we are also helping together with the Ministry of Works. The Works is the lead sector in working on Kabale, but we've been brought on board to
Have we changed that to Kabalega International Airport now?
Sorry, we have changed it to Kabalega International Airport.
Yes, that is dear to me, you know that.
The name, yeah, you know that. The name has been Kabale, but recently the cabinet changed it to Kabarega International Airport. So we technically we shall give technical advice, and eventually when it is completed, probably it will be in our hands because we are the authority that manages airports in Uganda, and improve the rest of the regional airports.
Okay.
Yes.
Director Richard, climate is one of the things that we discuss in this country. One is, the last one was an incident of birds and a plane on the runway migrating from one area to another. But two, there is also fumes from the planes that are there. What are you doing about climate and the environment as an authority?
Thank you very much. Climate and environment is one of those concerns that has been highlighted now recently by ICAO. In fact, there's a specialized annex on that. But the facts related to climate is that the pollution out of aviation within Africa is quite minimal. It's quite minimal. I think it's nearly about 2% of the global
emissions.
So it's quite insignificant. We, the African continent, are not the main polluters. But even with that, even in that situation, when I was telling you about our efficiency in airspace, some of the measures that we take for improving our efficiency is to reduce the climatic impact in form of reduced emissions. And these some of these projects that we've got, especially the implementation in the airspace, are geared to reducing that airspace, those emissions, sound. For those who live in Kampala, maybe, or those who live on the flight path may have noticed in Uganda that the aircraft that pass over us are quite silent. They are not as loud, and all this is out of deliberate effort. Those procedures that we talk about, for instance, the continuous descent, where an aircraft comes in and goes straight down with the least efficiency in energy, all those contribute to the reduction of fuel burn and reduction of the pollution to the environment. We've got those other procedures where we have continuous descent. You come out of Entebbe, you go as high as possible in a straight line. All those are measures that are geared to. There are other measures that are out there in the industry where we need to measure. We are required, and it's coming in the industry, where we are required to measure. For every operation, we are required to measure how much in form of fuel emissions. This is a global process. It is an international effort. This international effort has its level of development in Africa. In Africa, we've got some mandate that has been set, some dates have been set, we have been given targets, and we are, as the program rolls out, we'll be meeting those targets as required.
Director,
but we're very concerned about that.
Just one more question before I hand over to Mildred. The black gold, oil and gas, how is aviation positioning itself?
We need to answer that thing on bad hazard.
Yes.
Because, and I can maybe
yes.
That. The Entebbe, the location of Entebbe, as you know, is a bird sanctuary actually. And we have a specialized unit of bird, what we call bird control, working on that hazard, possible hazard. And we really have a working unit that deals with that. But recently, I think because of the destroying habitats of birds, I think birds, as they move around, they see an environment of an airport still intact almost, with green grass, and they want to be there. They have increased of recent, just because they have nowhere else to be. If it is Rutembe, it has been removed, as you know, because of other developments. So now, it has made it important, necessary rather, that we now have to deal with more birds than we have ever done. But even then, they are really under control. Just a few occasions. If actually we are not controlling it, them, you would see swarms and swarms of birds. It seems there is something that has tampered with the habitats, and we have an ecological study which we have actually commissioned to make sure that it guides us on how now to deal with the increased menace of the birds. But actually, we are not regarded as one of those airports that have very many of those hazards that are not controlled as of now. We still are far, far, far below what you would call a situation gone out of control.
Okay.
Yes.
In as much as we're gifted by nature. Mr. Lucha, I want to come to you. For any first-time traveler, you literally have a sleepless night. You want to set your alarm 10 hours earlier, and you want to be at the airport. But there is a bit of anxiety, lack of knowledge, lack of information of what's exactly required. And I think that was one of the basis for the extortion claims that happened in the recent wave of social media discussions with regards to airport and civil aviation. What are some of those basic requirements for a first-time traveler that you would recommend for them so you're not caught on the wrong side or someone is not fleecing you because you clearly do not understand what is required?
Thank you very much for that. As I go into it, allow me to just add on to what Diggy was talking about in relation to the birds. The other issue that we are experiencing at Entebbe in relation to birds lately, there is a changing pattern, especially the migratory birds from Europe. There is a particular season when they used to come to Entebbe. That season has kind of changed, and of late the pattern has changed. That's why you saw at the beginning of this year, we had a lot of barn swallows coming in January, yet that never used to be the pattern before. So that also has contributed to the increase in birds flocking in Entebbe. But of course, we are managing them through that buzzard control unit that he has mentioned. Moving back straight to the basic requirements for a passenger traveling through Entebbe International Airport, which is key for especially the first-time traveler. One, we require that first you have a passport that is valid, that has not expired. On top of that, check the destination country where you're going to, whether it requires a visa or not. If you're, for instance, traveling in the region, you will not need a visa. But if the country you're going to requires a visa, get it first. Two, purchase a ticket, which you can have printed or online. But we encourage a return ticket for various reasons, because there are circumstances under which a passenger may be allowed to travel on a one-way ticket. So if you are using a one-way ticket, you need to fulfill the requirements for a one-way ticket. For instance, a passenger who is going to a country where they have evidence of resident permit, that can use a one-way ticket. Or if you're a student going to a country and you have a student pass, you can use a one-way ticket. So those circumstances for one-way ticket are there, but if you don't fulfill them, you are required to have a return ticket. Why? Because there's this vice of human trafficking that we have at Entebbe International Airport. And because of that vice, we have noticed that human traffickers normally give their victims one-way ticket to the destination. They also give them another one-way ticket, bringing them back from that destination. What happens that the moment this trafficked victim reaches the destination, this trafficker cancels the other one-way ticket, bringing them back. And most of the cases that we have registered at Entebbe of human trafficking, they have that history and background. So because of that security consideration, it is pertinent that a person has a return ticket, and that's why we emphasize it. Now, having had a return ticket, you also need to look at the requirements of the destination country that you are going to. For instance, some countries will require a yellow fever vaccination card. For instance, if you're going to South Africa or China or Tanzania. But not all countries require yellow fever vaccination. So if the country you're going to does not require yellow fever vaccination, we do not enforce it at Entebbe, and that is one of the measures that we have harmonized that the DG was talking about earlier on. Two, also still check with your airline. As part of the requirements for the destination, a few countries have maintained restrictions of COVID-19, just a few. Some may ask you to have a vaccination card or COVID-19 PCR test. But as I speak now, those are very few countries. So if the destination does not require that, we removed that requirement at Entebbe, you do not have to have that. Even when you're coming back into the country, all passengers returning to Uganda do not need to have a COVID-19 PCR certificate or vaccination. that was removed in harmonization with the Ministry of Health, and it is one of the areas that have enhanced the passenger experience as we speak now. Now, those are the basic requirements for a passenger, but we have another category of passengers which we refer to as migrant workers. These are our sisters and others going to countries, especially in the Middle East, for employment. Now, for that category of passenger, besides these basics that I've mentioned, there is an additional requirement that government put up through the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, that they need to go through licensed firms, labor externalization firms that are licensed by the Ministry of Gender. If you have not gone through that firm and you are an individual, you still need to get a clearance letter from the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. So if you're a migrant worker to the Middle East for employment in that category, you need to take care of that other aspect on top of the other requirements. But once you have that, the other major need now for the passenger is to ensure that they are at the airport in time. Most of the international airlines close their check-in counters 1 hour prior to the flight's departure time from Entebbe International Airport. So we advise passengers through Entebbe International Airport that on departure, it is advisable to get to the airport at least 3 hours prior to your scheduled departure time so that you go through the entire process smoothly. Remember, there is some traffic jam on Entebbe Road if you have not used the express. And even when you reach the airport itself, as you enter the gate, there is that security checkpoint. If it is peak time, there may be a queue at peak time. So to go through all that smoothly, if you have given yourself 3 hours, chances are that you will not miss your flight in any way. Some of the complaints we got in January during that social media crisis were missing of flights. Yeah. And when we interrogated these, we realized that most people who missed their flights actually missed them because they reached the airport late. Someone, because they know that the check-in counters close 1 hour to the flight, gets to the airport 1 hour to the flight. Remember, this person has not gone through these other security processes. The check-in counter closes after the 1 hour we're talking about, you should have checked in already. But so if you get to the airport 1 hour, you don't have ample time to go through the processes and cross over in time.
Okay, thank you. Director Ruhesi, with technology and the evolving issues happening around technology, there is now this new craze of the need for drones and, unmanned aerial vehicles. It could be leisure, business, or whatever, sports and whatever it is. How are you ensuring that there are aspects of safety and security in as much as we want people to take the full advantage of these new technologies? And I mean, if I have my money to be able to take use of that technology, I can be able to take it up.
Thank you very much. Maybe before I answer a question, I'll touch one of the questions that were asked before relating to this, the
oil and gas.
Oil and gas.
Yes. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it is obvious that the oil and gas, the refinery is to be built in Hoima. And as aviation, we are the first infrastructure, the prerequisite infrastructure that is locating itself right there. So we are really within that oil and gas in that way, in two ways. In the other way is that according to the plans that have been published by the Oil Authority, is that the first product from the refinery is likely to be Avigas. This is the fuel that is used by aircraft. So it's likely that we'll position ourselves in such a way that aircraft and operators can make these technical stops to consume that Avigas that will be produced out of this refinery. Okay. It is one of those strategies that is set within that. But then coming to the issue of drones, okay, drones, you could call them UAVs.
Okay, we're not referring to these other drones,
okay, I'm talking about the
yes.
unmanned aerial vehicles, or in the industry we now call them remotely piloted aircraft and other names. We, as I said earlier, is that we look at these technologies very cautiously. We're excited that they are there, but we look at them very cautiously in that these are disruptive technologies. They are very useful for commercial, for business, for photography, for even the relief medicine, and all of these could be harnessed to that. But we've got, we're taking it step by step. We've got a process through which we ensure we've got a very rigorous process. And it applies to the rest of the world as well, where we've got a rigorous process of accepting them in the operation. Because as we've got to move step by step from initially allowing them into the country is one thing, allowing them into operation. We then got to go through a stage where we allow them right now, even when we allow them only in what is called segregated airspace. You bring your drone in, you go through the process of getting it registered, paying its tax. You then get support from an MDA, one of the ministries, supports you in the industry, specific to the industry for which you're bringing the drone or the UAV. We go through a sister tripartite arrangement where the ministry accepts it. It is taken to the military then clear it, which could be a long process. It is then brought to us to coordinate. And the way we do it is that we segregate that space where you intend to work. For instance, if you intend to work over Kampala, okay, Kampala may not be a good example. Say you want to work over somewhere in somewhere, say, in Masaka. We'd have to segregate that airspace to allow you to operate that drone. These drones, as much as if, for instance, as you said, birds, as a natural being, can be so dangerous to an aircraft. Drones really, we try as much as possible to keep away, to separate these UAVs away, very far away from aircraft. We don't actually allow them to operate at airports, only in special circumstances, so we segregate that airspace. Over time, and through a rigorous process, we'll go to the state where they'll be integrated into space with other operations. In fact, there's what we're looking at the moment is to have a special area, an area below 5,000, where drones can operate freely, or not freely as such, but in a regulated environment. So these spaces, even world over, the airspace is being divided into areas where these can operate, and all that is because of the safety and security. This could be very dangerous very useful for many things, but also they've got the downside. So the steps being taken are very cautious steps in introducing them, and I think the starting point even for us here would be to bring the stakeholders on board by sensitization. The people that bring those drones, the agencies that bring them, those who intend to use them for business need to know the pros and cons of having them.
Okay.
Yeah, and these are some of the steps we're taking. But sooner or later, over time, they will be integrated, slowly integrated into the airspace and into the air operations.
All right. I would like to come back to the DG, because earlier on you talked about the multiplier effect of having the aviation industry up and running, although not necessarily looking at having profit or making profit out of that. Now, I know that COVID-19 disorganized us a little bit on what we're calling MICE that we're picking up right now, the meetings, the incentives, these conferences and events. We're expecting the G77, the non-aligned movement, we're expecting a China summit and something like that. And these include high-profile guests, including heads of state. Is Uganda ready? Is our airspace ready? Can we be able to host this?
Thank you very much again for asking that question. As my colleague Hessa has been talking, the airspace is no question, is very, very ready. The airspace. Now what we are talking about probably are ground facilities at the airport. We've been working together with the National Organizing Committee. In fact, there is an airport committee where we are members. And we have told them, we have really agreed. I think we have also even been inspected. And the facilities that we have are enough. But also, you know that we are working on facilities like those expansion projects, arrival and departure. That one we expect it to be completed, and it will come in handy to handle those big numbers. You know, we hosted CHOGM.
Yes.
This is bigger than CHOGM, all right? But those facilities are still there. The other question has been the parking of aircrafts. Right now, we have measured and again measured with stakeholders, security, other organizers, and we have found that we can park at least 76 aircrafts
At a go.
At a go, at one go. Mark you, those can't even be there because they will come. Many of them come while going back like that. That is there. The other aspect of it was, of course, how to work collaboratively with other organizers and make sure that we receive people in 2 areas. The VVIP, you know, VVIP is a separate terminal.
Yeah.
And that really is enough for the heads of state that will be here and other dignitaries. And that has been earmarked as an area for receiving all dignitaries that will be coming there. Some of the groups that come with them, either before or after, will be received like other normal passengers. Because the majority of people who attend up to now will of course come with these normal scheduled airlines. And those ones we shall be receiving them like other visitors, but also with the help of the people in the ministries of foreign affairs, internal affairs, those who comprise that committee. So we are extremely ready, and with the opening of that at the end of August, that expansion will really be more than ready to receive those. The other aspect was the parking, I think, for VIPs, the vehicles that will be coming to pick VIPs. Again, we have started on modernizing the site. The site is there, but we want to make it modernized. And together with UPDF, Engineers Brigade, we are really almost done, and we are going to start working on it in the coming few weeks. Yes, so if you say, are you ready? Yes.
You're more than ready.
As a country, we are ready. As an airport, we are ready. And
Mr. Luja, that's why I also bring in the, we've had so many expos, and one that is coming up soon, which is directly linked to you. This sector is the Aviation Expo, or the air show that is coming through. What is this about? What do we intend to achieve out of this expo? A country like Uganda, which we've always referred to as the Pearl of Africa, not us, but the persons who refer to it as such.
Thank you very much, Mildred. And before I get into the expo, permit me to continue from where the Diggy stopped in relation to these facilities that are being put up. You remember he mentioned the terminal extension that is going to be ready ahead of this hosting of the G77 summit. But we also have another terminal building that is currently under construction by the China Communications Construction Company. That terminal building is expected to be completed. It's a completely new terminal connecting to the current terminal. It will be completed by July 2024. And when you add all the capacity together, currently the terminal capacity we have is 2 million passengers a year maximum. But when all these projects are completed in July 2024, we shall have capacity to cater for at least 3.5 million passengers in the terminal building. Now moving back to the Aviation Expo, which is scheduled for June 22nd to 24th, 2022 at Entebbe International Airport. It has a major highlight, which is the air show, that provides an opportunity to especially those who have never flown to have a chance to fly for the first time. There will be a minimum entry fee of 50,000 per person entering the Aviation Expo area, because there are lots of activities that are going to happen. For instance, we have lots of stakeholders that have joined us, including this expo is organized by the Uganda Professional Pilots Association with support from UCAA and other stakeholders. Among those stakeholders supporting us is the UPDF, which will provide flights information. You know, that exciting thing that they usually do at major functions. They will do that. Uganda Police Air Wing is on board, and they will also do exciting things in the air for all those that are coming for the expo to see. The people in the expo will have an opportunity to enter static aircraft. There will be static aircraft displays.
Oh, I actually thought you were going to fly us for 50,000 shillings.
No.
We were going to bring the entire village.
No. The flying cost is also there. I'm coming to it. But I'm still talking about these other exciting things. For instance, a person will have a chance to enter aircraft, view the cockpit, and even sit there and take photographs, especially people who have never entered aircraft. These things will be on display and available for them. Those who have paid the 50,000 to enter. Now, the category that is going to fly, we shall be flying them for between 30 to 40 minutes. And the fee for the flight is 200,000 the ordinary flight. But the one categorized as VIP will be paying 300,000. Now, those are the ones that will be flown in bigger aircraft like the Airbus, among others. 300,000, and you fly for 30 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes within Ugandan airspace and back to Entebbe. Normally, Kampala is a no-fly zone, but because of this air show, we have already secured special permission from the authorities to fly over Kampala. So, for instance, those that will fly in smaller aircraft will have a chance to fly low and be able to see some of the things that they usually, areas they usually are, things like Nambole, Owino Market, or even see some of the malls where you normally spend time.
Okay.
So that will be part of the highlight for those. When we last had this air show 10 years ago, when Uganda was celebrating Uganda at 50, we had a couple that had just wedded, actually. They came and had a chance to also fly on their wedding day. But we had lots of people from across the country coming in, and especially utilizing that chance to fly without even needing a passport or a visa, as long as you have your 200,000 or 300,000 for the VIP flight. Yes. Please come and take that
break
flight
the curse of never
and
using
enjoy.
the
There will be lots of entertainment throughout the day, and we encourage schools to join, because this is good for the students. There will be career guidance sessions. The different air operators will be exhibiting and providing career guidance in different areas. Normally, when you talk about the aviation industry to schools and students, most of them think about piloting as the main thing. But there are many other fields, like he has been referring to in his area, air traffic control and others. We shall have our air traffic controllers, among others, there in an exhibition stall, providing career guidance to students on some of the courses they can undertake to become air traffic controllers who do not fly aircraft but talk to pilots on a daily basis and directing them, pass here, do not pass there, that kind of scenario.
Okay, that's going to be interesting. I saw Timothy already calculating how much money and how many members of the family will be coming through.
Anyway, as we put down this landing gear, I'll start with Director Richard. Your parting shots, and we'll go all the way back to the DG.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the viewers. My parting shot would be that it is a good opportunity for us, CAA, in fact, even as Air Navigation Services, to at least share with the viewers some of the work we do. And maybe beyond that, we actually do not only secure the safety in our own airspace, we also are engaged in efforts beyond that, because we are involved in an effort under the EAC, the East African Community, where we are looking at have a common seamless airspace. We're also looking at setting up a similar system, the entire region, the whole of the Africa and Indian Ocean region under COMESA. So there's a lot of activities. We call upon students mainly. This is a season for students having doing industrial work. Maybe this is an area that a career that they could pick on and get involved in or take interest in, including that exhibition that will be provided at the. But I thank you for hosting us here and being able to listen to our some of the services we offer in the airspace.
Vian, over to you.
Thank you very much. Maybe just to remind users of the facilities at Entebbe International Airport that as you depart Entebbe International Airport, if you have visited and parked there are options of paying for parking, which include mobile money. You just need to dial *227# using your mobile phone, and you follow the prompts so that you pay for that parking using mobile money and exit comfortably without going to the pay machines where they are. Otherwise, I thank NBS and UBC.
However, some think the parking fees are exorbitant. I've just come for a pickup. You could probably offer and say first 40 minutes free, and then the rest you can start paying per hour.
No, they are not exorbitant at all, because if you look at the fee, the starting rate is 2,000 for the first 30 minutes. If you compare the cost of parking in Kampala at some of the malls, for instance, it's not any different. But we are talking about an international airport here. That rate, if you compare it with the parking rates at other airports in the region, it is definitely quite competitive. But thank you very much for the opportunity to explain to Ugandans.
Lastly, the Director General.
Thank you very much, Mildred and your colleague, and thank you all of you viewers. It is yet a very, very good opportunity to come here and explain to the real owners of these aviation facilities, the Ugandans, what is going on in our aviation industry. And it is always good that we are here. But I would like really to encourage Ugandans to know that aviation is there for all of you. First of all, Uganda is not linked to the sea, as you know. It can only be linked to the sea through air. Air is free. The air transport is free and can have linkages elsewhere. And we need to come up and use our aviation facilities much more than we have so far done, because they will enable us to have very seamless transport means to reach the sea like other countries, to interconnect between countries and make sure that we ease our transport system. But we want also to inform the general public that we are determined, very, very determined, to make especially our aviation facilities, especially in Entebbe, to be a hub and to look to be competitive like any other airport in the world. But we shall continue to be cautious and move with the level of activity that is expected in the airport, and not just come up to build things that will eventually be white elephants. We shall move slowly, but we shall surely reach there. And we want to encourage Ugandans to be available to use their facility, both in cargo and as passengers, to make sure that our industry grows. Luckily enough, we're now having a hubbing airline, Uganda Airlines. And I want to encourage ourselves to, as much as possible, use Uganda Airlines and try to make it expand. When it expands, it also expands the home airport, which is Entebbe, and we shall sooner than later have enough airport users in form of passengers to make sure that our airport is fully utilized and our aviation facilities are used by the owners, the Ugandans, as we expand our industry for the future. Thank you very much, and I want once again to thank you for listening to us and our the team of colleagues who are here. Thank you very much.
And we're really grateful that you came through to be able to listen to some of the things here. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming through. This was more of teaching the people of what we're doing, and also credit to you for really championing safety and security. Now we need to get to the economics of it there. But from the dynamic duo of Mildred and myself, I really appreciate everything you have had here, and also the interaction that has been on social media with both of us here. We haven't been able to read some of those. There was just too much feedback there. But from me, Timothy, thank you very much, and God bless you.
And yes, thank you very much to NBS TV and UBC TV Inspiring Uganda for making sure that this comes to pass. Let's continue with this conversation on social media, because that is the kind of space that we're in. And probably prepare your 200,000, 300,000 to be able to fly for just a few minutes. For those of you who've never had this experience with an entrance fee of just 50,000. From myself, Mildred Tohaise, and Timothy, we want to say good morning, because it's already midnight, and see you in a few on the Morning Breeze.
UBC, Inspiring Uganda. This is the University of Africa. On the streets, you get your real education. Here, everybody has a degree of something. But the most important qualification is imagination. Her reason to imagine is slay. His reason is to be the GOAT. Theirs is to take the beat and make it lit. They want to test edgy till it is fire. Their reason for imagination is to add riz in style. Her reason to imagine is finesse. And hers is to find what's new and bussin'. So no matter what your situation, just use your imagination.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Attack, there's rumours been circulating. Is this the start of the long-awaited, the long-anticipated, well, it was a spring offensive that's been pushed back now. This is after the Ukrainian President Zelensky said that he was ready, that Kiev was ready to launch this counter-offensive. There's been some contradictory statements. One of his deputies said that they didn't have the ammunition to launch the offensive. So, but this is a significant loss for Ukrainian forces. Of course, this is a developing story. We'll bring you more and keep you updated as we have more.
The use of NATO-supplied weapons by the Ukrainian military and armed groups to attack Russia has finally started to raise questions from Kiev's Western sponsors. The Belgian Prime Minister is now talking about strict controls on where the arms are ending up. My colleague Fiorella Isabel dug deeper into the issue with RT correspondent Uma Isha here in the studio.
The Washington Post has reported on Saturday that the anti-Kremlin fighters that are using tactical vehicles originally given to Ukraine by the US and Poland. Now we have Belgium that is currently doing an investigation after Belgian rifles were reported to be used by pro-Ukrainian forces that are fighting against Russian forces within the Russian territory.
European weapons are delivered to Ukraine under the condition that they are used on Ukraine territory with the purpose of defending that territory. And we have strict controls in place to see that this is the case.
Now, this has been a focus of Western media for months. Has there been any reaction from the West on Kiev's botched offensive attempt?
Now, Warsaw has also denied connection with the Polish Volunteer Corps, which has also taken part in the attacks in the Belgorod region, while the worries that the weapons supplied to Ukraine by the West might go into the wrong hands, and these worries were ignored. Eventually, that's exactly what happened. And according to some reports, U.S.-made anti-tank missile launchers were found in the hands of Mexican drug cartel, which they have allegedly bought from Ukraine.
What we want to do is support Ukraine to make as much progress as possible on the battlefield so that it is in the strongest possible position at the negotiating table. And we do believe that this counteroffensive will allow Ukraine to take strategically significant territory back from Russia, areas occupied by Russia that are rightfully sovereign Ukrainian territory.
Now, dozens of U.S. 84 weapons systems were originally shipped to Ukraine, but they have been purchased by the Mexican cartel. But let's not forget that it has been proved in 2022 that Western supplied weapons were found on the dark web for sale. And according to the press secretary Dmitry Peskov, weapons to Ukraine keep on increasing, and the supply from Germany and France of missiles with 500